Can you tell us what the experience of being a live keyboard player for AIB was like?
Working with these guys has always been like such a treat, honestly. And then I come in on stage and I'm like this thin, small guy, and I'm just like putting my keyboard, especially because at the end of these shows, you got to meet the fans, and they considered me as if, oh, ye bhi bada aadmi hai. When you are studying to be a musician, the last thing you expect is to be part of a comedy crew who are not musicians at all. I did the opening theme song for Kanan for one of his stand-up acts. I did the opening theme song for Zakir Khan's first stand-up special, Haq Se Single.
Hello and welcome to Your Heart's Content, a show where we try to analyze the parts of content that really matter. We talk to musicians, artists, illustrators, designers, stand-up comics, folks in the business of content, all in a bid to try and understand this space of content a little better and how you could benefit from it. In this episode, we speak to Mehar Chumble. Mehar is somebody I've known for a while. He is a musician and he's a sound designer. He works with ad films, he works with web series. He's actually even worked with AIB for the sound design and the sound and the music for a lot of their sketches back in the day. And he's also played live keyboards with them when they were on tour. With Mehar, we speak about many things, including, of course, the role that music plays in content, what he does and what his process is, what his space is. He's got a beautiful studio and how the creative space really sparks off various things in his head. We speak about the dichotomy of art versus commerce, especially for a musician. And we speak and start actually with being at the right place at the right time and taking opportunities and sort of like letting that just dictate the course of one's life in many ways. So this is a really fun conversation and we speak about and reference so many different things, and we hope you enjoy it. Is our chat with Mehar Chumble.
Mehar, thank you so much for coming onto our little show.
Happy to be here, man. Very happy to be here. Awesome. Thank you for having me.
I mean, our pleasure. We are going to talk a lot about sound and music and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So let's start with, can you tell us what the experience of being a live keyboard player for AIB was like? And yeah, we're getting some deep cuts right away. And how that was different from just being the guy who had put the music together for their sketches.
Wow. Cool.
Taken me
That's
ages back.
cool. Yeah. This was a while ago. Okay, so
I see that live, by the way. That was very cool.
You've seen the act?
I've seen that. I even particularly remember the moment where I forget when the vibe shift happened, but I remember you carrying your sunglasses as well and putting it on during a very specific point.
Oh yeah, it wasn't sunglasses. It was a blindfold. Those sleeping thingies that you get in the plane or in the hotel. Essentially, the joke was that these songs are so easy to play, you don't need to see.
Wow. Oh, correct. Yeah, and they made you part of the show because of
the
that.
joke. Yeah. Okay,
I know that's a zinger of a start, but yeah.
Working with these guys has always been like such a treat, honestly. Just hanging out, being like a fly on the wall with the four of them in the room, it's an experience because, like you hang out with your own friends and you have your own jokes, you make jokes, you laugh.
Yeah.
But when you are in a room where comedians are making jokes at each other and laughing, those jokes are at another level only.
Sure.
Because it's like someone cracks a joke, but then the other one has a wittier response to that, and you're just like blown away because these things are so hilarious. So working with them, whether it was on video or for live, has always been crazy. And we had to, I think, rehearse for about 4-5 months before the show started because neither of them are songwriters.
Right.
They just had the idea that maybe we could have like a 15-minute musical section at the end of our comedy set, so that we can, the idea was that all four of them have different personalities. So when they each come up and they do a little bit of their stand-up act, at the end of it, all four of them will be on stage and doing the music together and all of that, right? So it's kind of like bringing the whole show together. So it was me and another friend. We were kind of writing the songs. He was a writer and I was the musician, essentially. And we kept pitching ideas as to what is funny, what could work, what may not work. Of course, most of the jokes and the ideas came from the guys.
Of course.
They were like, नहीं हम ऐसा करते हैं कि अनु मलिक का स्टाइल का कुछ गाना बनाते हैं और उसमें we'll put our own lyrics.
Yeah.
We'll take the idea that how much he steals music from random places. Like he's stolen Happy Birthday to You.
Yeah.
For some song. And he's stolen Macarena for 2 different films. Like Macarena comes twice in 2 different films, which is like 5 years apart. So both 90s, obviously. So that whole process was too much fun. And then touring with them, honestly, I didn't think that it would be so, it would last this long. Because when I joined them, it was just this tour that they were doing for 2 months. And it was just like throughout India. So Bombay, Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, just like the metros. And I would just come at the end with my little keyboard. I would stand and I would play last 10, 15 minutes. And I just stand out from these guys because they're all like 6 foot tall, all of them, None of them are like short people. They're all like very mature looking people. And then
they have persona. They have
that presence. Yeah. And then I come in on stage and I'm like this thin, small guy and I'm just like putting my keyboard. But then that kind of became funny because I don't like look like any of them. And I'm also not like, they involved me in the jokes because of how I look, And from playing the keyboard, eventually I started playing the guitar also for them. Depending on what show it was or, what was the availability of the stage, whatever, the mics and all of that. So that was too much fun, especially because at the end of these shows, you got to meet the fans and they considered me as if, oh, ye bhi bada aadmi hai. As if, it was fun to experience that, and not just how the fans respond, but how the people the event managers and everyone who arranged for the shows, how they treated AIB as celebrities. So we got to stay in 5-star hotels. I would get my own room as if, I'm also someone big. I would get like a personal valet sometimes if the other 4 want to go and either do their sound check beforehand or whatever, if they have their own arrangements to do. I don't necessarily need to be there for most of the show. I just need to be there at the end, right? So then a car would come personally to pick me up and take me to these shows. So all in all, like at the end of the show, we would go to these clubs where we got entry to only the private VIP sections. Yeah. So that was all like seeing how a celebrity lives and what their life is kind of super exciting for me.
Yeah, they were living the rockstar dream in
a very random way, like so random. Like when you are studying to be a musician, the last thing you expect is to be part of a comedy crew who are not musicians at all. Like none of them can sing, none of them have any idea of melody, rhythm, nothing. But it's still fun,
Yeah. Four people who don't have any musical training at all also applies to the Beatles. But anyway, that's another story or another discussion for another day. But
let's not go there.
This kind of let's not go there. Yeah, let's not go there. This could go anyway. I obviously put that question out over there just as a random fun way to start. But what you used the word random. What were the various random things that ended you in that?
I swear it was,
because I feel like many of these things are eventually just I mean, yes, of course, some level of skill, but also some level of being at the right place at the right time and just taking chances, right? Especially early on.
Yeah. I was in college when I first met Tanmay. So my Hindi teacher in college was Tanmay's friend, basically close friend, Devanshu. Devanshu sir, I call him. I forget his last name. But he said that, Tanmay. Of course, Tanmay was my senior in college. So when I was in BMM, he was like 4 years graduate already by then. But because he was Tanmay Bhat like back then also. All the teachers would still talk about him. All the like other faculty, like the peons and everyone would talk about Tanmay Bhat, how he was the first one to start the BMM festival in National College where I was studying, cutting chai. So he was like a big name. Ever since like my first year, I knew Tanmay Bhat, even without knowing who Tanmay Bhat is or what he looks like.
Yeah, one of those like urban legends that just circulate around every college.
Then you Google Tanmay Bhat and you see that, he's a stand-up comedian. And he would go, I believe in college also, he would go and do stand-up acts and stuff like that. So he was funny, and I got to understand, like, okay, he's a stand-up comedian and very intelligent fellow. That is clarified. So Devanshu sir, he told me that AIB is like a team he's starting and they plan to make viral videos. Why don't you go and meet Tanmay? He is looking for someone who will do some music for free, aisa. And Devanshu sir knew that I was into music because he was not only a Hindi teacher, he was also like a film aficionado.
Sure.
So a lot of his examples, a lot of his lectures were related to film and cinema. And I really took to that. So we became friends more like almost instantly because we both had very similar tastes, and I really loved like the way he would think about cinema and talk about cinema. And in my second year, this is when I met Tanmay, I had started to give music for my seniors who were doing like their final film projects and stuff. They realized that, this boy can kind of do scores and stuff like that. So I started doing scoring for them. And once in a while, like when our batch would make any films, I would score those films. So he realized that, okay, I do music, so I should go meet Tanmay. So I went and met Tanmay, and it was like an all-night session essentially, because the kind of guy he is, super chill, but he's doing like 1,000 things at one time, at all times.
Even back then?
Yeah, even back then. Like he is tweeting, or he's also like handling another project, and he's just like talking to someone else. And then he comes to you and then he's like, this is what we want to talk about and stuff like that. And then he gets distracted, he does something else. But his mind it's not like he gets distracted, like ADHD distracted. He's like pinpoint focused on everything that he does at any given point. So it's like his mind is working in like, in the background. Anyway, so he was like, okay, let's see what you can do. Then he gave me like a small project. I want to make a political video with... just make like a funny political video with our current politicians. Let's try to recreate the Game of Thrones theme song, but make it Indian, give it an Indian vibe. So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Let's see. So I made something and he liked it. So that's from that time on, I started scoring for their videos. Then they were like, okay, we are planning to do a stand-up show, which we'll probably do all over the city. So let's sit and write some music together.
Very cool.
Yeah. And through the four of them, I got to interact with so many other comedians and got to be like in the same room with all these guys. Like, and they were all rising at that time. Kenny Sebastian, Kanan, Karunesh, Abish, literally that entire team.
Bunch. It was a golden era.
Yeah, that entire time. Kanis, all of them, I got to meet all of them and talk to all of them, and they got to know me. So I have done something for Kenny also in the past, also not directly, but it was like an advertisement, something for something he was sponsoring. So I did an ad for them. And I did the opening theme song for Kanan for one of his stand-up acts. I did the opening theme song for Zakir Khan's first stand-up special, Haq Se single. I did the music for that. I did the music for the theme song for Knockout, their roast.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yes, there was.
If you would like us to edit that out, then.
no man, I'm so happy to be part of that. And so sweetly they gave me like the front seat. I just requested Tanmay, you know, like I also want to come and see the show. Can you just get me a seat? And because I didn't want to pay like 4,000 rupees for a seat. He got me the front seat. I'm sitting next to Homi Arjani, who was sitting next to Deepika Padukone. And like when they are taking shots of the film, you can see my
You
arm.
can see your
So like, hey, that's me in the
with the music tattoo. Right.
I didn't have tattoos back then.
That's
But,
amazing. Like it's just random how these
it
kind
is
of things
literally
happen.
right place at the right time, the way you said it, and what you do with the opportunity that you get.
Skill, right? Yeah, I mean the luck is obviously some part of it, but I don't want to discount skill. So would you say, like for example, that you had a leg up over say others because you understood something better? Or
Yes, and I'll take this a step ahead also. I started music fairly late in life if you compare it to some of the big musicians. Like a lot of the big musicians today are either second or third generation musicians.
Okay, that way.
So like they start from a very young age. Or even if they are not, they have started learning their instrument at a
like
very
at
young
3 or
age.
4 or something.
3, 4, 5, 8, whatever. I started at like not 17, I was 15,
Oh, wow,
15,
okay.
16. So by the time I was with AIB, I was 19. So I had been playing only for 4 years, 4, 5 years. And simultaneously, while I was learning the softwares also. So I was learning how to produce music and learn music simultaneously without realizing that I'm doing this. I was just doing it for fun, learning these softwares, because I've always been into softwares, be it video editing softwares or like graphic designing softwares, music. I would just learn everything and just figure it out. I feel like if I were a more skilled musician, I would have been slightly insulted to be playing such music.
Something like
or
this,
like
yeah.
not insulted, or I might feel like I am wasting my time here
with this like
with
random
this kind
comedy.
of music.
Yeah,
Like it's like I'm playing 3 chords, I'm playing 4 chords. I'm talking about fart jokes, you know.
Is this what I studied?
Yeah, I mean, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life?
fair.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was the right person for the job because I had a limited skill set at that point, and it was something I really like. Life takes you in such weird ways, and I had just like, because of this, I realized there is a genre called music comedy, and then I was introduced to like Flight of the Conchords and Bo Burnham,
Weird Al,
yeah, of course, all of these, Eddie Izzard and all these big artists. That's another genre. Like I was like, oh, this is something else that I can, even if I may not be personally a very funny person, I can always be part of a team that is funny, and this is another job, another way to look at my career.
Yeah.
Why
Did you
not?
ever consider getting into that space more?
Musical comedy?
Yeah, musical comedy and basically everything that was happening. Like you stopped at a time when, everything seemed okay. You were doing this ad with Kenny, you were doing this, you were doing that. And possibly, I mean, it was a golden period. I would say that entire scene also kind of, I wouldn't say fizzled out, but it became, I don't know, a little less
Saturated.
experimental,
I would say
saturated, whatever. I mean, everybody has their own theories with respect to this. So sure, there was a natural, coming, I mean, okay, guys, come back from the stratosphere. That naturally happened. But in any case, even then, like, it's not like comedy is dead today. It's still pretty much thriving. So did you at any point of time think that, hey, okay, maybe I should be doing this a little more?
I was thinking of it. In fact, because I was still in college during this time.
Oh, you were still in college while all this was happening?
Because most of this happened in my second year and then third year.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, like, those 2 years of my life is when AIB were really going hard on touring. So, I would do this with my friends, but honestly, back then, itna bada nahi tha social media. You know, it was big, but it wasn't like that big. We would do it just for fun.
Yeah.
But we would not do it कि वो इसको video upload करके हमें Instagram पे डालना है. Of course, that time तो Instagram था ही नहीं,
The
video नहीं था.
performance was 20, which was 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was 2013, 14.
The one which you
Maybe
played
one-
at Weekender was 2015.
14.
2014 or 2015.
yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah.
Baba
And
Sehgal
that
played
was-
right. Baba Sehgal played right after you. I remember this very well.
He was actually supposed to play with us also.
Oh, really?
But that didn't work out because timings, like
Okay.
practice timings.
Yeah,
and
yeah. All
everything.
sorts of things happened.
Yeah.
Festival. But sorry, you were saying, yeah, 2014, 15. Not
Whatever.
so much social media and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Right? At least the way it is
Yeah,
formalized today, I guess.
So it didn't pick up as much as I could have if I really set my mind on it. Of course, because it was so much fun, we would do these same shows for like when our seniors were graduating. We made like a show out of it. We made like a Qawwali show out of it where I was playing the harmonium and we were singing and we were just making fun of roasting everyone basically.
Sure.
So that was fun. And I just eventually realized that I enjoy studio work more than performing live. So I think that's where my attention went. And then because
Again,
I
like
started,
4 other gentlemen that we know who we have spoken about before.
oh yeah,
The Beatles who also realized at a point of time that they didn't want to do live anymore and the studio is really where it's at. But never mind.
I love
musical
how
discussion, I will find at least 5 parallels with the Beatles. I will
I
not do
love
this
how it
anymore.
keeps coming back to the Beatles.
Yeah, with me it's always that way. But anyway, sorry. So that must have been an interesting realization.
And then when you start making money from what you are doing, you eventually start to give up on a few things.
Yes, of course.
You just like, ye kar diya hai maine, now I want to do this because I'm making money out of it.
Sure.
So then you start pinpointing your focus towards just these things. So then that stopped. But it's not like a dream it was never a dream to become a comedian, music comedian or anything of that sort.
It's just a nice, interesting part
Yeah,
of-
and I'm just really glad to have been a part of this rise of the comedians, like the wave of comedians that came out.
Yeah.
And it's like just a part of my life.
It's like
that
a small
happened.
part, and I'm assuming like it's okay. That happened. That went.
Yeah, and I'm still in touch with all of them.
I'm sure you are. Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe not personally in touch with all of them, but when AIB kind of broke apart, they each formed their own things, right?
Yeah.
Like some are doing advertising, some are just doing writing, some are doing a few things. I'm still part of their lives in some small way. Like, even if not Tanmay, but Tanmay's team, say someone will contact me for something that they are working on, or Abhishek, Ashish's something project will happen, and then somehow I will get involved in it because through and through it's come. Because everyone is just part of that family, right?
Yeah.
They had that one guy who would do the animation. So if project goes to him for animation, then I generally do most of his sound design or music work. So then that project comes to me. Like similarly with Abish Matthew, when I worked with him, he saw that I'm doing things for AIB. So he was doing the Son of Abish shows back then. And he wanted to have these small animated videos talking about, in a way, educating people about things. So it could be about gender neutrality, so he wanted to just make a cute video about it. So he approached Mehar, who was the animator,
And who is the animator of this show that you're saying? Yes, thank you. No, that was to the camera. Yeah, Mehar did the animation that you guys saw at the top of this episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
See, in some weird way,
and it's all connected.
all
because
of us are like somewhere
we're all connected,
related.
and this is not a coincidence because Mehar worked with the AIB team, who then eventually worked with the OML team.
Yeah.
Because that's together. My wife Divya, she was at OML at that point of time. Met Mehar at that point of time. We worked on a project together when we were freelancers, and when we decided to start this thing and said, okay, do we need an animation sequence? I said, I know a good animator. So you're right, absolutely. I mean, it's just also, and eventually when we need a score, we know who to reach out to.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Done. Absolutely. No, but I think it's a very interesting point, right? So as a freelancer, or at least somebody who has been involved in freelancing in some way over the last 5-6 years, I have often felt that reliability, I think, is the most important thing when you're looking for a freelancer, right? And a lot of our work, right? We know completely different spaces, obviously, but a lot of the referrals often happen on the basis of reliability rather than quote unquote quality, right? And I'm not saying that you or I do a bad job, but there's a certain minimum expectation that is definitely there.
They
But I
deliver?
feel like, yeah. And I feel that most clients, be it for music, be it for content writing or strategy, whatever, they are happy to get 80% at a reliable 80% rather than a unpredictable 100%. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Fair.
I don't know. This is just a very random observation. Sorry, you were talking about.
No, that's totally true, and that's kind of a quality that you have to imbibe. And if it doesn't come naturally to you, then it has to be learned, you know, through habit and like to. I have always been someone who tries to finish what they start.
Yeah.
But if it is something that I am doing by myself without any external force, like giving me a deadline of any sort, then I tend to procrastinate or give up, fizzle out something or the other. But if there is a deadline and if there is money involved, if there are more than one person involved, and I have to prove myself, you know, to a certain extent, then you have to a certain extent give up on your sleep to be able to deliver that, and you have to learn to do that. You know, especially for someone who is naturally lazy, which is why I'm a freelancer. You know, I don't want to wake up in the morning and go for a job.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
No, that's fair. And I think it's a very nice, natural way to segue into kind of everything else, right? So how did freelancing, how did making music all the other things that you do really, once this little phase of life, let's call it, was over, how did you adapt to everything else that you ended up doing? Or is it something that you were already doing?
What specifically are you talking about?
I'm talking about sound design, mixing, composing for ad films, composing for scores, whatever the case may be. Let's call that the freelance part of your life, and in many ways, I suppose, the professional part of your life now that these fun and games of this comedy is over.
Actually, I keep coming back to thank AIB for this, because they boosted me into this career. I could have very well been in this career without them also, but the kind of boost they gave me in the beginning, it was kind of like giving me a head start, right? Among like everyone else who I know who are doing this, which is why I do get regular ad work now, because through OML, the folks who were at OML back then are now at different production houses, agencies. They still get in touch with me for work. And then once your work is out there, then it does its own
the
job.
best BD you can do is just having good work out there.
And what I did very consciously is that with every project that I got on board a friend or a collaborator who would who would be a specialist in the particular genre that I had to produce. So say if I had to do a rock song, then I would get a guitarist who would collaborate with me. Not like कि मैंने compose किया और मैं guitarist ला रहा हूँ वो बजा रहा है. I would get him in the composition phase itself.
And that's interesting.
And I would be like, dude, we'll split the money 50-50. I'm not looking at this from a money point of view. Let's just do this. Let's have fun. And what that did was it helped me split the pressure. So the stress that you get with a project, because now there's someone else on the team, it kind of gets divided between the both of us. Even though I may be the point of contact with the team, at least now I know that in case there's a third party producer who comes and sits with us, if he says like, I want to be part of the composition in the studio, I want to come and sit. It's not just you, like, you have to come up with ideas on the spot. There is someone else with you who has his own set of ideas. And if you are stuck somewhere, they will come and bring in their ideas. So it never stops. Ideas don't stop when you get a collaborator in. So I think for like 4 years, I work like this. With every project, I would get a different musician to come and help.
Nice.
And what happened at one point was one of my friends whom I would work with, say, I had started working with more regularly. He realized that, oh, is this a job that I can do? Because he comes from a very business background. His parents expected him to join their business. And that was his choice. Like, he didn't have a choice. That was his, like,
Path
direction.
defined for him.
Yeah. But when he realized that, hey, can I make money out of this? And when he's like, okay, can we do this? We sat together. He was like, can we do this as like a team now instead of you like getting other people on board?
Yeah.
Can I also like? So I said, see, I would love to do it, but like you would then have to take a certain number of responsibilities from your end,
Sure.
so that we kind of work well together. Because what if I would want to get a violinist to, it's like I don't want to limit myself, is what I told him. But unlike most people and most musicians that I know who are lazy, he was so proactive in, like he was just so amazed by the fact that he could make money out of music that he said, I will do anything
to make this work.
to make this work. So he used his people skills, his networking skills, and like his talking skills, because he's a
Which
great
were
talker.
honed for business.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
transfers that
Exactly.
here. Interesting.
So now, whenever we get the big budget projects, it's because of him. Not like I network to a certain extent, but for the longest time, I was getting these mid-budget, low-budget projects.
right.
But the moment he joined, and the moment he started one-on-one meeting producers, emailing them, and like sharing our work with them, like proactively. I would once in a while, if an ad came out, maybe on WhatsApp, I would just send a message saying,
Sure.
this is my new ad that has come out. But he does it religiously. He's created a broadcasting group on WhatsApp.
Clearly has a process to it.
Process.
Yeah. Very well thought out plan. So he is not just the composer now, he's also the manager of the group, So this tends to happen when you meet people and work with more people.
Yeah.
Eventually you find someone who can be your partner, and then you can take it to another level then.
Yeah.
No, and I think what you would say is beautiful, because one of the things they say that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with someone. Right? I mean, you're saying that you could only get those mid-budget, low-budget projects. But
Yeah.
now suddenly, for the same amount of work, let's say in terms of hours,
Yeah.
you're
Exactly.
getting paid a lot more. And that automatically now frees up so much more time and mental bandwidth for you
Exactly.
to actually think beyond. And I mean, we both run the 6% Club together. And now that I think of it, it's just been 4 months.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be able to bring it where we are without him as a collaborator. Yes. Okay. Right. And that makes so much sense, because you also need space to grow as a creator, right?
Yeah.
Without always having to worry about, am I bringing enough money home?
Yeah.
What if I don't have work next 2 months? What am I going to do? But the moment you have a partner in crime, right, that entire things just become so simple and like frees up your mind.
Yeah. Again, pressure is divided. Everything is divided. Of course, then money is divided, but then that is something you have to, it's okay. To a certain extent, you'll be like, it's fine. This is for my mental stability.
Yeah.
No, also you expand the pie, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about...
Exactly. If the money is more, then
it doesn't
even if
matter how much you're splitting it.
Yeah, exactly. That-
Everyone gets to eat.
Yeah.
more.
yeah, and
As a result.
why not? Like, one shouldn't be like greedy.
Yeah.
At least in this field, you just can't be greedy about money.
Have you, so it's very interesting, right? You're speaking about collaboration from what is essentially a commercial perspective, right?
Yeah,
Ultimately, the work that you're doing about, you're still talking about it very much from we are in this to make money and not
Yeah.
perspective
Yeah.
completely, right? I suppose what we are doing is,
Yes.
I suppose somewhere in the middle, but we'll get there. Do you think that same approach can be transposed to, say, personal projects? Like many people who are going to be watching this, for instance, will be thinking, okay, I want to run a podcast, but do I want to do it alone? And for many of the same reasons, possibly not the money just yet, but sharing of the load, somebody might have contacts over here, all that sort of thing. Somebody might have experience doing this before. So sharing the burden, sharing the load and all that sort of thing. And just again, somebody just to bounce things off and share, the tension with, like you said. Do you think the same kind of things transposed to personal and non-commercial content projects too?
That's a good question, because I think it's very person dependent.
Sure. Both this person and
that person.
right?
Yeah. Now, I knew that I could get all these musicians to come and work with me because I was paying
them. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Now, and plus I was like maybe 22, 23, 24. Back then, we don't really talk about money as much. But when you are old enough, when you're 30 plus, anything that you are doing, you feel like you owe someone. Like if you're getting a guest on this thing, or if you're getting a musician to come and play on your personal song, you feel intrinsically inside like, I think I should pay them at least some staple amount so that it doesn't look like he's doing it for free. But again, see, then it doesn't become collaboration. It kind of just becomes
transactional.
Yeah. It depends on your friend circle also.
Yeah.
How many people do you know, and how friendly have you been with people with, in the past, that will they come at, just a call away? Are they just a call away? Will they come and help you? Actually, I was just discussing this with my friend yesterday. He released a music video, and a beautiful music video a couple of days ago, but he produced it entirely himself. He is primarily like a cinematographer, but he is also an amazing musician and someone who's just good at everything, essentially. So people you are jealous of, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was talking about how every small thing that had to happen during the music video, he had to pay for.
Okay.
Right? So he had to get one extra person on set to be in front of the camera just to fill up a space. They had to be paid, But this is not the case in Kerala, because the music scene in Kerala is like a full community. If you look at some of the music videos coming out of Kerala, like the indie scene, the hip hop scene, they have some mad work over there. And he was like, see, these people who would have been part of the music video, they probably would not have been paid. They're probably just friends of friends. They've just come for the fun of it, And that's how their music video looks so much more dynamic. And you can see the chemistry between the friends, because it looks like that, right? So it's place dependent, it's person dependent. It can be translated into personal as well, but it entirely depends on how you have interacted with these people in the past and how close they are to you.
Yeah, and it also depends, I guess, on what the shared goal is or shared ambition is, right? Again, it comes back to the thing that we always speak about, which is when people are starting off their content project, one of the first things that we tell them is like, why are you doing this, right? Are you looking at this just as a creative outlet because 5 days a week that you're slogging your butt off in the corporate world and now you just want like a release? Or do you eventually have hopes of becoming a famous creator or whatever the case may be? Because no goal is wrong, but the direction that you take to get there is going to be very, very difficult. You're not going to be selling out stadiums of 50,000 in India if you're going to play 16-minute prog rock suites, for example. So you need to be clear about where it is and then, go along the way. So I guess it's about that as well, right? What are you willing to sacrifice together?
Exactly. And it also depends on your status in the society. I hate to use these terms, but where are you right now in the industry? So if I'm a Benny Dayal, I can collaborate with people for free if I want, because they want to work with me.
Sure.
It's like that. So I can get a great music producer to produce my song for free purely because even if I don't know the person, it's someone I found online, suppose.
Yeah.
They would want to work with me because I'm Benny Dayal. But who are you at this point also? Like, I can't approach a Benny Dayal to come and sing for a song I've made, for free.
Yeah.
He will charge his whatever fee.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But again, if you are the son of Anu Malik, then you can get you can get whoever you want. Whatever, I'm just saying, whoever you are, depends on who you are and where you are in that industry at that point in time.
Yeah. So let's go to the music and sound stuff that you do, right? This is like, actually everything that we've spoken about till now was just the outcome of one random silly little question that I asked in the beginning, and now we are actually going to get into the actual part of things. Wow. Sound and music, right? I mean, for people who listen to sound and music immersively, obviously we are deep into that world. How important is, I'm just going to use sound as a general statement over here, which obviously involves everything from background scores to theme songs to all that sort of thing. How important is it in, broadly speaking, the content landscape today, which could cover everything from an OTT show to even, say, a semi-professional Instagram reel that a creator is putting out?
Yeah. I mean,
how important is it actually, and how important is it perceived, or like how much do the people actually care about it?
Okay.
I know there's a lot over there. I think that itself will take another hour, but let's...
No, there is no question that it is important. I think everyone knows the importance of music. Even like someone who is new to content will know that when there is a song that is trending, the moment you put that song in your reel, you will get more views than you would have normally got.
So that's a very functional way of looking at it, especially in 2024.
Yeah. So there is no doubt that music can be most essential. Like it is one of the most essential aspects of content, at least social media related content. Even when it comes to OTTs, OTT streaming shows, like who doesn't remember the theme from, Achin's theme from Scam 1992?
Rocket Boy. All that, or everything, anything else for that matter.
Like that is like people have that as a ringtone nowadays. You know, it's so big. And when Sacred Games came out, Alok Nanda, like she had done the music for it. Everyone was going crazy, like the way she had done it, the way Anand Bhaskar does Mirzapur, the kind of sounds that he has created just for the theme song. So unreal, like, and it gives that sound of the of that city.
It gives you that emotion, right? Like, I just want to take a small digression that, and I would want you to answer this question at some point. I was thinking about when was the first time I was moved by sound, my memory of it. And my memory of it actually goes back to, I grew up in a very small town in India. And the most vivid memory I have of sound was playing 8-bit video games.
I mean,
right? And the entire generation of those Japanese sound artists, right? They were creating worlds with sound itself.
And with such limited
vocabulary, with such limited technology to play around. And if you played a Mario Brothers or a Contra growing up, right? You know those sequences are taking you through the stage of the game which is going, and you are feeling those emotions with it, right? And to me, I still have very strong memories of growing up with that sound. So I feel sound has been a very primal part of who we exist and how we think as human
no
beings.
matter how much you say you're a music fan or
it doesn't matter, right? I don't identify myself as a music fan, but I can count, or maybe I cannot count the number of times I have been moved by sound alone, right? Without any accompanying visuals, story, words. And we were just discussing this music box, right? And how there is one note in it which tells you that says something off going to happen in this entire Harry Potter
so
thing.
for those it's basically the Harry Potter theme song, and as everyone's heard the Harry Potter theme song, right? And it's the first few notes are all happy. It's, to me, it's the theme song has always been a reflection of the books itself. Like the first 3.5 books were, this is beautiful fantasy, like it's all happy and all that sort of thing. And then Cedric Diggory gets killed, and that's the moment everybody realized, so some shit is going to happen in this series, because if this can happen, anything can happen. And there's a certain point in the theme song itself, right? Ding, 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 and that note suddenly, like, where did that come from? That does not go with the Warner Brothers
I'm getting
logo.
goosebumps just thinking
about it. Right? So I mean, that's just a very small example, but I think music is one of those things where you feel like if you take it out, I think everything falls flat. You and I were talking about the Bangalore Music Museum, the Indian music experience in Bangalore. For those of you who haven't seen, please go for it. There's this one lovely installation that they have where they just to show the importance of music, they have two iconic scenes, one from Sholay and one from, I'm not sure if you can call it iconic, but it's a scene from, what's it, Ranveer, from Barfi, Ranveer. So what they've done is they've played the scene and they've got 4 different options for background sounds, for background music.
Nice.
Right? So for example, the Sholay thing is the Kidne Aadmi The scene, which of course is iconic, and they played with the original, and then they say, okay, now let's listen to the same thing with, say, a comic backing track.
Yeah.
And the thing is this, it works, except it changes the context completely. Right? You're expecting like one of those snake toys to come out from the gun rather than actual gun, and then they have a drama which then elevates it to almost like an action sequence where you're expecting not tragedy but a superhero to come and save the day, stuff like that. So it's amazing how just the sound can change the perception of a certain scene. And I'm sure you felt this a lot and have thought about this a lot for good movies where this kind of engineered to be that way, but even for, say, brand work that you might have done and seen entire moods and perceptions change because of the choice of chords or instruments or whatever. So I don't know, we didn't have a question over there. It's just a long-winded talk about how
but just to take your point further, because one piece of music can change the entire emotion of the film or the ad that you're working on, it's very important that the client knows what they want. Right? So if they don't know what they want, like what their final product should feel, what it should feel like, what it should look like, then it ends up becoming a trial and error process because they don't know what they want, and they
find it impossible to
interpret
also.
Because if they don't know what they want, we will interpret it the way we are watching the ad, right? So we will interpret the ad and give the music according to how we think it's making the scene look good at this point, right? But then when the client sees it, he's like, no, this is not the kind of scene I wanted. It's completely changing the emotion, and also then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what you want.
You know, I have almost perfect follow-up question which I've written over here, which I wanted to ask you at a much later point, but I think it's a perfect time to bring it in, which is what makes for a good director? And over here, director, I'm going to use as a blanket term for, say, a client who might be paying, a brand manager or whoever's going to put the final brand. Like recently I saw this interview that Ayo Adebere, the Inside Out 2 and Bear actress, was giving with Seth Meyers, and she was actually going to direct an episode of The Bear, right? And she's never directed before, and she was giving, and I haven't seen The Bear. My wife's crazy about it.
It is. It's great.
And I know it's a great series and all that sort of thing. And she was going to have breakfast, and it's a directorial debut, right, at least professionally, and she was going to she had breakfast with Robert Townsend, who was directing some of the other episodes, and they were in a cafe, and she thought she was going for some tips and motivational things and all that, and he just said, how would you direct this scene where we are right now? Sketch it out for me. How what do I do? What do I do? What's the feeling that you want to convey? What do you actually want to do? And I remember at one point of time, and there was a time when I was kind of involved in plays in some way or the other, right? As anyone who graduated from MICA was at some point of time.
Same here.
Yeah, post MICA also, weirdly enough. And we had a great director, and I was handling lights. One of my small flexes in life is that I've handled lights for a play at NCPA. But anyway, so one of those weird things that happen.
Cool.
It's a nice little random piece of thing to throw away, but it is what it is. But one of the things I absolutely loved is 2 or 3 days before the actual play, and we had by this time done all our rehearsal, and we went through the motions. He said, today we are not going to rehearse, we're all going to sit in a circle. He got us all in a circle. Spandy, this is for you. We all sat in a circle, and he said, I want you to tell me what you are making the audience feel at every point of time, right? And then okay, this is going to be a fun exercise. So I was sitting there waiting for the first dialogue to say, and then he turned to me like, Chuck, yes? What? The play starts with you, because you are literally handling the lights. Okay. I have to do slowly, yes, because audience has to. Oh, okay, now I get it. And then like everybody's like, okay, this is what he's gonna do. And
Nice,
it was such a beautiful experience because you kind of realize that small knob fiddling that you're doing, what role it's actually playing. Not just the play, but the audience who's watching it. What's literally the stage that you're setting. It's a very, very long-winded way, both of these stories together. But I think what I'm trying to get at is what makes for a good brief, what makes for good direction. Like, what are the... I don't want you to name any names per se, unless, of course, it's very positive, obviously. But, like, what are the kind of clients that you look forward to working with? Because I'm assuming it's going to extend from the answer that you just gave.
Yeah.
Which is, if you don't know what you want, then I don't know what to give you. And neither will you know how to judge the output of what I'm going to give you. Wow, that is a very, very long-winded question. But anyway, I hope you did.
Directors, no. By default, a good director obviously needs to be a cinephile.
Sure.
They need to know their shit, right? They need to be inspired by movies. They need to love movies. And 99% are. That's why they are doing this. It's a more or less thankless job, and it's a very difficult job, and it's a kind of job where you have to be there from the pre-production till the end of the project. You know, someone like me comes in only in the post-production and is just there for like a couple of days, but the director is there for the whole time. The director has to not just interact with me as a musician, but they have to interact during the production. When they are shooting, they are talking to the cinematographer, they are talking to their ADs, they are talking to everyone, right? The writers, the actors.
Not to mention all the 300 other things that
they are the omnipresent factor in any film. So them having to be headstrong and knowing what they want, it is more than essential. Like, you cannot be a director if you are a spineless person. Like, you have to know how to get things done by other people.
Sure.
Yeah.
And not make them hate you for it.
Yeah, and not make them hate you for it, obviously.
And that's a tight balance, right? Because you can have this, but then you may not have a light sky
again,
to work with.
It depends on kahan pe ho, what type of, are you
sure,
like the biggest director of the
Sure.
So as a musician, I love directors who love music, honestly.
Okay.
I love it, especially for ads, if we get a film with a reference track.
Okay.
Because most of the times the deadlines are like just a day away, 2 days away, or the project comes to you second hand because you are the second composer they are coming to, since the first one didn't work out. So you had to deliver it yesterday.
Sure.
You know, it had to go live yesterday. So you are in that state all the time. So if it comes with a reference track that has come from the director who has spoken to the client and like has decided beforehand, like, this is the entire vibe that we want to get. Are you good with this vibe? Whatever the reference may be, you know, that is one. Second is that the director should be able to tell if the composer they are going to work with will be able to pull it off or not. So I think it needs to come from the director who he decides to go ahead with as the music composer.
Right.
So it helps to have many friends who are directors so that they all know you.
Yeah.
But I think it is important, no doubt, that the director should be able to identify skills in people, you know, like, and this helps especially as a composer if you have your personal work out as well, like just songs that are not commercial songs.
Yeah.
So then you know that if this is the vibe I'm going for, then I would want to go with this director because that's his forte.
Right.
You know, there was a movie that came out called Captain Fantastic. It has Viggo Mortensen in it. Mortensen, the guy who played Aragorn in Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
It's a movie about a family who doesn't want to live in the city anymore, so they raise their children in the forest. Okay, but they are like super intelligent people who school their children and like teach them everything about life, and not just syllabus related things, but like existential, philosophical topics they talk about and everything. And the director wanted a calming, background score that runs throughout, and a very like ambient, very cold feeling he wanted to get with the music. So then he approached Sigur Rós.
Oh wow, okay.
They're an Icelandic band. They sing in Icelandic, English, little bit English, but they're primarily an Icelandic band.
But they don't sing in Icelandic. They've actually made up their own
like
language.
Icelandic.
Let's not get into
that.
Geekery, yeah.
But they're a post-rock band, and their kind of music is very ambient, although they use very organic instruments, which is another reason why they approached Sigur Rós and not another band who would probably be using synthesizers and stuff to create the same songs. But they use actual orchestras and they use actual guitars and drums, and they have heavy music also, but they have very soft music also, and very piercing music. So it was the director who identified that, we should approach this band to do it. Now I'm talking about from a Hollywood perspective, but like similarly, it happens here also.
Yeah.
Why was Anand Bhaskar approached for Mirzapur?
Yeah.
Because of his Anand Bhaskar collective. They knew that his songs are so like, has that rural touch to it,
Yeah.
and that he will be able to pull it off. Of course, someone like a Sneha Khanwalkar was a wild card.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Anurag Kashyap identified that she can pull this off. So he approached her. She went to Banaras and Punjab and all of these places, and all the singers, everyone she got from there only. She recorded her music in the cities where they were shooting the film. Now, only a director can identify these things, right? And how, like, I can't speak from a director's perspective, but
of course,
it needs to come inherently. Like, you need to study not just the music, but the people around you.
Yeah.
Sorry, not just the films, but like the industry. You have to know, like, how an Indian cricket team captain would know how this South African batsman bats, or like how this guy bowls, so that he can tell his batsman that, see, this guy bowls a spinner, but every time he bowls in this certain way, so you have to like respond in this way.
There is like, it's almost like what you're saying, especially with the cricket analogy, is that there's a lot more strategy to this than really meets the eye, and it's really not about, oh, this guy is a great composer, but there might be a situation in which, to invoke the name for the third time in this conversation, Anu Malik is actually a better fit than, say, an A.R. Rahman, Anand Bhaskar, or even a Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, like if you are doing a Hello Brother,
yeah, sure.
Then why will
Thank you for rescuing me with the
because you wouldn't want Hans Zimmer doing Hello Brother.
Yeah, you don't want.
Does.
No, I don't want.
Or Anu Malik doing a Planet Earth. That would be that I would pay for. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it depends. You have to. It's a puzzle.
Situation. Right?
Yeah, it's always a puzzle. Like, you have to get the right people at the right time, and that is when a piece of art is made.
Yeah.
When literally everyone comes together and is good at that genre, they know their thing, and when all of these pieces come together, that is when a great film is actually made.
So there is that element of curation, really, right?
Exactly. Curation is the right word.
Taste, okay, for this mood, this setting, this context, this is the right person to actually bring it to life.
Yeah.
The perfect cast of characters. To bring it to
and if you don't know, then of course, for everything there is auditions, right? So not only for a singer or an actor are there auditions, but even for music composers, especially for big budget projects, you don't just get the project through a contact or anything. You have to submit something. They will give you a brief and be like, okay, we want to make a song like this. Can you share a sample, a scratch track? How would you interpret it? Now, if they like your interpretation, is only when
you move to the next stage of a discussion.
Exactly. So it's the same case. The director may not know the singers, but you send him the samples on email, he'll hear, then he'll be like, okay, yes, this voice is suiting this scene right now. Definitely, let's go for this singer.
Yeah, even if it is not quote unquote classically good voice.
Yeah. And I'm again coming back to Gangs of Wasseypur,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Most of the singers who performed in those songs, they're like completely unknown people. They're villagers, you know, who are singing. Or those those sisters who sang for that highway song with A.R. Rahman. These are people you find and you discover, and then you, as a composer, of course, we have to discover these things. But then when we discover it, it has to be shown to the directors and it has to be shown to the producers. And then everything has to kind of work out for any small thing to happen.
So 2 questions. I have one slightly small and one I think might take slightly longer. Second one is I found it fascinating how you spoke about this director knew that Anand Bhaskar would be perfect for this because he has this kind of rurality, etc. thing. And I have seen Anand Bhaskar several times perform as an Indian indie music fan who goes to festivals and all that sort of thing. So, and I know that, say, Warren Mendonça has played for everybody, for like A.R. Rahman and all that sort of. The question I'm really going towards is the more arty indie music kind of like a portfolio building for where the actual money really is?
100%.
Yeah, it kind of is, right? It's almost like a
100%.
showcase, and all of these guys, all the composers, etc., are aware of their capability.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's like that's a theory that I always had, and I'm pretty sure.
It's the direction you take now.
Yeah.
Anand Bhaskar went in that direction because he is just such a great musician and a great singer and a singer-songwriter. It must have become a performer. It must have just come naturally to him that I am going to start a band.
Yeah.
He may not have thought about the idea that मुझे eventually films बनाने हैं या films के लिए गाने बनाने हैं. It just kind of went in that direction, right? And being in India, writing songs that appeal to the Indian masses, that obviously it helps.
Yeah, it helps.
You know, I see this similar route for someone like a Ritviz, you know, who is just doing his own work, but I see him eventually being part of movies because his music is so popular that if he just applies the same thing to a movie, those songs will be massive.
Massive hits.
Like massive. The moment you get an Arijit Singh to sing a Ritviz song, it's going to blow the nation.
Yeah.
Right? And it will happen. Maybe not this particular group of people, but like someone like how Oaf and Savera are like on the rise right now. They did Gehraiyan and the kind of music they did for that. Even Oaf and Savera, before they got Gehraiyan, they were just doing their own music, you know. They were into advertising, but they released so many beautiful songs before that. And Shakun, the director of Gehraiyan, he heard these songs. And that is why he approached Oaf and Savera. And when he heard one song actually that was unreleased, he thought that, oh, this song is really good. Let's put it in the movie, but let's translate it into Hindi. You know, and that was Dubey.
Okay.
Which was originally an English song, but it got translated into Hindi and it just worked. So it is really important for a musician to create an identity for themselves, but it's again difficult. Now, for me, it's difficult because I am not, like songwriting comes very unnaturally to me. I have to really learn and sit and really break my head to write lyrics and to create like this, because I have always been like a background score kind of a person. Sure. I love scoring for films. I'm a very visual person. If I see a scene, then I love to interpret that scene musically. But if I have nothing and I don't even have a brief from a client or any direction to go in, then I'm kind of lost, you know. But so that's why that process takes a very long time. But for singer-songwriters, I think it's very good for them to just write their music and share their music, create an identity for themselves so that they can get similar.
Yeah, the second question I want to ask you was actually exactly along those lines. You spoke about how a director should always have almost like a directory, and maybe that's why they call him a director, never mind, of a vast range of musicians, actors, etc. But it's almost incumbent on the musician themselves to be picked up by the director or pickupable by the director, whatever the case. We say this in the freelance world, right? Like, what's the identity that you want to be known for? Don't say that you are a designer and an animator and this thing and this thing and this thing, because that means you are nothing, right? Focus on one thing and go for it. And the sharper you can be, sure, you reduce the pool of people who you might potentially reach out to, but your chances of conversion from like the 5 people who you have is astronomically higher. And you have much more of an advantage than everybody else. So you kind of answered it. But and
that is a combination of the identity that you are creating for yourself and the networking that you have. It's not just one thing. It has, like, there's a lot that's being played simultaneously.
I want to ask a question around what you talked about, that a director has to be a cinephile, right? He has to love cinema, right? Now, when you are working in a certain kind of space / genre, right? You naturally build your identity around it because you are attracted to that space as a person. But as you go ahead and doing the kinds of work you do, once in a while you will also encounter genres which are unfamiliar to you, right? And you have to then put in the work as an artist to familiarize yourself with that genre so that you can translate that into sound, right? Have you gone through an experience like that? And then what are the influences you seek out to educate yourself about that genre?
Yeah, and I think advertising has helped me immensely with this very thing, because ads are so quick. They come and they go. Like, in 1 week, your project is over. But ads have so many genres in them, at least in terms of music. Maybe not as the film per se, but like someone will come and say, I want dubstep music for this. Or they would say, I want jazz music. I want Broadway jazz. Jazz also is like everything. Broadway jazz chahiye, if you want just like a quartet playing something. Or they would say, I want an Indian classical song. I want a Qawwali song. I want something from the south. I want to give that effect. Thalaiwa is... and uska entry ho raha hai, waisa wala style of music I want. That is when you start to study these different genres, and I've been lucky enough to be part of so many genres that if genres that I don't like also, like EDM or techno or house music, dance hall, like these are such random electronic genres that I would never really consciously listen to had it not been like a brief given to me by someone. So you dive deep into these. You have to study them because every genre has a history. It's not just it should not be gimmicky. At the end of the day, you don't want it to sound like I am trying to create this sound. You have to imbibe it, right? Just as an actor is trying to imbibe a new character, you have to be honest about it, and it has to come from the right place. So there is a lot of study involved, and it's constant because as a musician, I've grown up with only a limited number of influences.
Yeah,
correct. But the moment I have to do something commercial, I have to step out of that. I am no more my influences. I am the director's vision.
Wow, that's a nice way of putting it.
And that's what actors also say, that the director has to bring it out of me. Similarly, I think that's same for sound also.
So you have to constantly study different genres. As a director also, you have to watch various genres of films, right? As a music composer also, you should watch various genres of films. Be a cinephile if you are a music composer as well. You learn how horror music is composed, or like how commercial Marvel movie is produced, like what kind of music goes there, or the differences between a DC movie and a Marvel movie in terms of music, and it's Zameen Asman. Like you have someone like a Hans Zimmer doing a DC who makes sure that every character has a theme, a recognizable theme, something that people will remember when they leave the theater. Okay. But a Marvel movies never really had that until much later. Even now, it's not like how many characters can you remember?
Like Thor doesn't have an entry music for that.
Yeah, exactly. But Wonder Woman did. Superman did. So like this you study, but then you also study Korean cinema, or you study Japanese cinema, or you study European cinema, which is like, there are some wildly weird people in Europe, man, like not Siberian, but like Eastern European films, you know.
Romania, Poland.
Yeah. Poland especially. The music coming out of Poland, Bela Bartok, and he's like one of these classical times, like Beethoven period of sorts. Not that old, but like that old. His music is what is studied in that side of Europe. But it's weird, like the kind of notes that you don't really listen to, their scales are different. But the moment you apply them, so again, it depends on your vocabulary, right? What was that Sat Khoon Maaf song that came out? Darling, aankhon se aankhein char karne do. Yeah, that is a Russian song. That is a Russian folk song. But the composer knew that this is a Russian folk song because he's heard this song. He must have heard it in some Russian film, or he must have heard it somewhere, you know, from a Russian ad, movie, song, because it's a folk song. It's not something that was composed for a particular piece of media. It is something that has been sung for ages. So the director must have, or the music composer must have recognized this. So he applied that to the Indian cinema.
Same, the Iranian song in the animal film.
Oh yeah, exactly.
That's an Iranian song.
That's an Iranian song. Yeah. That's again an Iranian folk
So
song.
they must have heard it somewhere and they want to apply it to that particular part in the film.
Yeah.
Which is that celebration and whatever he's doing.
Yeah. So it's not just the genres that are available easy to you. You have to dig, you know, you have to really go out of your way to listen to songs coming out of different countries and listen to what other people are doing, you know. Because what is shown directly to us is just the mainstream popular music, you know, and honestly all of that at this point sounds the same. I can't even everything sounds the same.
I was just thinking, as you were saying all this, going to the movies must be such a arduous task for you, because you're looking at judging everything from the lens of music, right?
But
especially things that aren't
honestly a great movie is when I don't I come out of it and then I realize, hey, I didn't focus on the music at all, you know, because I was just so invested in the film. A good interface is something that people don't have to think about. I think Jobs said something like that at some point of time. Oh yeah, it should just
so
be...
it's I think of all of these things that way, right? Where you're focused, primarily you're going there for, let's face it, we love music and all that, but primarily you're going there for the story and to be entertained, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the music has to kind of add to that.
Yeah.
The only times you should notice is if you're consciously okay, I'm going to look at this now from a musical lens and then judge it, or when it's so bad that it stands out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. And that is honestly the case with a lot of Hindi films coming out. You see the film and you're like, okay, this could have been a great film, but their treatment is still so old school. हर scene में music डालना है, comedy है तो वही style का comedy music आता है. You know, there needs to be some change, because, and even the levels of the music are so loud. I don't know why, honestly, because even our actors are getting so much better now. We have such beautiful actors who don't need music to back their
or power to perform,
but still
back or to compensate for.
Because they're just doing it so well, but फिर भी डाल रहे हैं, मतलब सब कुछ डाल रहे हैं हर time, you know. That needs to change. Of course, we are diverging from the...
No. I think, for example, the use of space or gap.
I was just coming to it. The gap. I think Miles Davis had this amazing quote, right? Silence is an instrument by itself. And and this is another topic that I could talk about for 3 hours. My favorite guitar solos are not the ones with, say, 300 notes a second or something, but it's stuff that gives there's enough space for the notes to kind of breathe almost, right? You're oh wow, this is really, it almost feels like confidence in a way. I'm going to play 3 notes in 10 seconds and that's how much confidence I have in these, and that
It's still going to hold you
it's just
as a
hold you.
listener.
And I think the guitarists who have stood the test of time, be it David Gilmour, Mark Knopfler, Eddie Van Halen, I think all of them espouses like they let the space act like a instrument by itself. So I had that same kind of observation. It's not just for one instrument. I think it's for stuff as a whole. I think my interpretation a lot of modern music, and I try to listen to a lot of modern rock as well. And while some of it is good, it just the rest of it just feels like, okay, the layer is there. We have paid for 16 layers, might as well fill all of them up.
Yeah.
And let's overtrack, multi-dub everything, and just create this wall of sound, right?
Yeah.
Part of it could be the way we listen to music right now and all that sort of thing. But when I then immediately listen to stuff from the 60s, where there were 4 instruments and you can hear all of them very clearly, all of them sounding very confident almost in what they're doing, you know, you have those, like, even like, I listen to a lot of, music which comes from some sort of a folk tradition in India, right? And there you can see instruments shining through, correct.
right? But then when you overproduce something, no instrument really shines through, right? You're not seeing that, tabla guy shining through in a particular part, or the flute coming in. And I think that's what sort of really elevates music, at least for me as a listener who has no understanding of music otherwise. But that is what really stays with you, right? And some of those acoustic instruments naturally build in sound, lack of sound or silence, I don't know what should I call it, for me to appreciate that.
100%. I don't think this is deviating at all. In fact, you can tie all of this back to where we started, where you literally said, like, each of those 4 guys had their own little monologue, and it's almost like each of them was giving each other space to, communicate their own character and unique style, rather than, okay, what's the maximum number of jokes per second we can put out over here, which would be a very sad way of looking at it. So we always try to look at things from a very meta perspective that way. But I don't think it's deviating at all. So anyway, you were talking about silence and letting stuff just breathe.
Again, that is the call of the director as well. Like, depending on what film it is, if it is a producer taking the call or the director, but a good director at least will know when music is required and when music should not be there. Should sound design play a bigger part in this section, or should music? When there is music, there shouldn't be too much sound design. When there is a lot of sound design, there should not be much music. These are all things that have to be balanced out, and it needs to come from the sound designer and the music composer also, obviously, but the main call at the end of the day is of the director, right? They take the decisions. So they should be aligned with the ideas. They should be open to listening to the ideas of the composers or of the sound designers. There's this scene in Udaan. I come back to Devanshu sir. He told me about this because I think he assisted on that film, or he was just somehow part of that film. There's a scene where the main actor, who I forget his name, the boy.
Oh, okay.
He is kind of venting his anger, and he is breaking a car or something with a bat. And it's done. He's exhausted now. He's just standing. And somewhere in his acting, he looks to his right. And there's no reason for it. He just kind of looks there, and it's pretty obvious that he looks there. So what the sound designer did, he decided to put like a bell sound, like a sound of a wind chime on that speaker. So it looks like he's responding to that sound, like he's exhausted now, but he's hearing, or a mandir ka bell or something like that. So he hears the bell, and that's why he's looking that side, because he's responding to that sound.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So these are all creative ways of incorporating sound or taking sound to help
it's almost like
take the story forward
to the story.
Right? Take the story forward and help the actor in a way, in a very retroactive way. Like, you may not be with him at this point, but he has done this performance, so let's make his performance better with just the sound.
Let's see how we can add sound to this. No, utterly fascinating. I have had the good fortune of visiting the place where you make your music, your home studio. And it was it was like wonderful. There were instruments everywhere. I don't remember every detail of it, but I remember there being, of course, your keyboard, your standard stuff, right? The keyboards, guitars, all that sort of thing. And you had, you were proudly showing me an instrument that you had picked up from Rajasthan or something, I think it was. I don't think you had a use case for it yet. You just said, I found this and I thought this would come in handy someday or something of that sort. So question I have, two questions over here. One is, how do you choose which instrument to use for what setting, scene, etc. And two is, how important is it, and this is a broader creator question, how important is space, how important is the environment rather, that you are especially getting inspired in? I understand that. So like, for example, in our course we say that there is a time that when you're trying to allocate time, there is a time for thinking, the inspiration time, let's call it. There's a time for research, like you've got an idea for a podcast episode, now you actually need to go online and do all the research. And then there's time for execution, right, which is like just donkey work. You need to hunker down and do on your, you need to write it out, you need to record, edit, whatever the case may be. The first part of it is in many ways the most crucial, because the idea really comes from there, and that you can do it anywhere, any point of time. And like the stereotype, like the joke goes, the idea will never come when you're trying to do it. It is most likely to come on the pot or when you're like doing something else or whatever. Right. So for you as a musician, as somebody who's first and second and to some extent third spaces kind of like the task kind of merge, how important is that environment for you? What are the sources of inspiration for you when a brief is there and you have some idea of how to go about it? Do you go anywhere else to crack an idea, as it were?
So personally, I don't need to go anywhere else. I like to have a clean space. I make sure that at the end of the day, at the end of my work day, I clear up everything.
Okay.
So if I've taken out my mics or if I've taken out certain instruments from their cases to record them, everything, I keep it back so that tomorrow when I begin my work, I start fresh with a fresh mind.
Nice. Okay. Is that more out of ritual, or is that?
I think it's I think it's just something it's the only way I can think properly is if I sit in a clean environment.
Starting from that same point every day.
Yeah. And I personally really like having one spot to do my thing, because like anything, you will only be inspired to work out if you're constantly going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know, you will not be inspired to work out depending on the person, but like I cannot work out at home because I will work out, but then I'll be distracted on my phone, or maybe I'll watch TV, or just if I'm watching a YouTube video or an exercise video, I might just click on something else through the algorithm and be like, oh, this is some stand-up comedy video. I'll just sit there and I'll watch. Similarly, you have to create that space, just as say a Reiki healer would have a room that is just meant for healing. Like even if it's in their home, you will have one room which is which just gives you that positive energy, right? So you will put agarbatti there, or you will play certain music there. You will have an Indian sitting or like a divan or something like that. So like that, you have to create an environment wherever you can, and it helps to have a mobile setup, of course, in case you have to, if you're forced to travel somewhere else. If a client says कि नहीं वही studio में काम करना है, then you have to carry your work there. But as far as possible, most of my work is done at my place itself. And because I have space enough for 2 more people to come and sit, if it is just like a jam session without any director, producers or anything of that sort, then I can get 2 musicians to come and sit with me. And that's where we jam. I have the instruments required for them to play. And I love to buy instruments even if I can't play them. Eventually, I feel like, somewhere or the other, I will fiddle with them and then I'll try to understand. In fact, as a music producer, when you are writing music for, say, a clarinet or for a violin, you need to understand how the instrument works. Because in case you are getting a musician to come and play for you, you can't just play something and expect them to be able to translate that into a violin or a clarinet, right? There are a certain number of notes that you can play on these instruments. You can't play a very low note on a violin. You can't play a very high note on a cello, So you need to know the range of these instruments. You need to know if I'm leaping from this note to this note, how plausible is it for the musician to play these notes? And that only comes with you experimenting with that instrument yourself. Even if you're not good at it, if you understand how the instrument works, yeah,
Interesting.
then you can then you can explain it to the musician better, and the musician is also not like baffled by your composition, because it happens. I met this guitarist who used to do songs for like literally all the songs in the 80s. So he was the guy who did the guitars for all the songs that came out in the 80s and 90s, and now he's a teacher. He's retired and he's a teacher. So I went to just talk to him in general and see if I want to like learn something. He was talking about rabab.
Oh,
The instrument
Islamic
rabab. Yeah.
Instrument. Yeah.
He played the rabab intro of Chapa Chapa Charka Chale.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So he told me that it was something else. The intro was rabab only, but like the composer had done something random. When he reached, he was like, ये तो बज ही नहीं पाता, like रबाब पे बजेगा ही नहीं ये, ऐसे notes है ही नहीं रबाब में. तो he was like, अच्छा ठीक है, तो आपके हिसाब से बजा लो, ऐसा ये मीटर है, ये BPM है, ये स्केल है, आप देख लो आपको क्या बजाना है. You know, that is also fine, but it should not, ideally as a music director, it should not be like, हाँ तुम कर लो आपको जो करना है. It doesn't look nice. It helps to
Give some direction. Like
give
you
some
spoke
direction.
about, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, I have all the instruments at my place. I love to experiment with different sounds. I have this portable mic that I carry almost everywhere I go, so that I can just record ambience. You know, I'll record the ambience of my street downstairs, or I'll be standing at a bus stop to get the feel of a bus stop. So I'll get the sound of a bus coming from this, the sound of the bus stopping, people getting on. All of these are sounds that help if you're ever putting sound for a film and there's a bus coming, I don't have to look on for those sounds on the internet. And at that point, you're not going to go, or you can go, but it depends on the time. You know, how much time do you have on your hands? But if you have these resources available to you, you can just use them instantly. So these are like things that you have to keep doing, whether or not you have projects. So you have to keep listening to these different instruments, different sounds. Like we know what the sound of a rabab is. So we know we can use it in a certain context, even if it is not a movie set in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It could be a film set in. It was used in
Marches.
This marches.
Yeah.
It's Kashmir related. No?
Yeah.
So वहाँ पे it's not really a Kashmiri instrument, but it works for that song because it's a folk instrument, and it kind of has this melancholy to it. The rabab. It just worked in that environment.
Like it's an instrument, if you think of it, is most played in hilly terrain, where the music also bounces off and creates an environment.
Yeah.
For example, if you go to Turkey, to go to Konya, which is the birthplace of Rumi, right? Rabab is a huge part of Sufi music.
That is,
because it wants to build that melancholy as an instrument for you to think about what is this singer saying, trying to tell me about love, about God, or whatever is the thing. And I just want to sort of go back to one thing which you said, that even when you don't have work, you are doing these sounds and picking. So like this principle, it's called fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Right? So it's almost like you have to do some of these just seemingly random things.
Yeah.
Because you don't know where some of this might get used or where the idea may come from.
Yeah.
This whole fuck around and find out, do you consciously do it, saying that, hey, I have a couple of free days, let me just go out and do this every time you have free time? Or is it something that I need to have a certain amount of free time to be able to do it?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
Now, I didn't carry it today. I just forgot it today. But normally I carry that mic everywhere I go. So I get the sound of my rickshaw. I get the sound of the meter of the rickshaw. These are all sounds that I find very fascinating, and I can use them in the context of a song also, But if I'm going out for any reason, I always have that mic with me. So I'm just recording things. If I'm sitting in a restaurant, then like the ambience of a restaurant or like the sound of cutlery, all of these I will do consciously, but not like proactively that I'm going out to only do this, right? But I would make a trip out of it. Say if I would go, say, out of the city, if I'm going for a safari, then I would consciously be like, I'm going there to get these sounds. So if you are on a jeep, then I will tell my driver, abhi 5 minute ke liye kuch mat baat karo, main recording kar raha hu. I'm going there for the sole purpose of getting these sounds. My wife will be going to be seeing the animals. Of course, I also love it, but I'm more fascinated by the sounds of the jungle. And like I got this beautiful sound of the call of a deer when there's a predator near them. So there's a call, and then they're warning the entire jungle that there is a
danger.
There is a leopard here, there is a tiger here, so be careful. So I got that sound, and I may not ever have to use it for anything, but
it's amazing.
there.
What a lovely visual oral journal, journal almost.
Yeah.
So, in fact, you remind me of this great episode which I heard on Invisibilia, the NPR podcast, where they actually recorded animal sounds through the night, and they realized that all the animals of different species were actually sort of doing a symphony, that they were actually playing off each other's sounds and not just sound of their own. It's a lovely episode, and I think we should link it when we release this episode.
I would, I'd love to watch this. Yeah,
and of course, it's also an episode done very beautifully in terms of sound itself, and it tells you that if you are willing to sort of slow down, which is by the way my philosophy of life, but if you're willing to slow down and listen to those sounds, there is musicality in it. So while there's a functionality of that sound, and there is a musicality of that sound. And that's what I found really fascinating when I heard that episode.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. It's one thing to have a phone camera and take videos of everything, but the moment you have just like you're removing one sense, you're removing one major sense of your life, you're removing the entire visual aspect of it, you tend to focus so much more on that particular thing then. So like if I'm only doing sound, then you close your eyes and you're listening to the sounds of the jungle again, and you get that memory. You get the memory of when you took the recording. It's you don't only need photographs and videos to prove that you were there. You will remember your entire journey through that audio recording as well. And I find that amazing. I had taken the sound of my train when we were going to that city. So the sound of the train inside, the sound of the people talking, you can still hear distinct conversations of people talking in some language, different languages, and train afternoon, crowded, lot of people, train, night, silent. So you can hear only in the distant, like someone is whispering, someone is packing their bag, it's just so nice to listen to sounds as just an element of...
In fact, when you think of Indian classical musicians, when they're taking the alap, why do you think they close their eyes? Because they want to concentrate all their energy on that one sense.
Right.
They're shutting off the visual sense. They don't want to look at the audience or maybe someone who's sitting next to them, because they want to focus on the sound so deeply, because they're trying to bring that out, an emotion which is in them, which is they're trying to play with that rag or whatever. And I think that makes so much sense. And you start focusing on one sense, it really heightens everything else you're experiencing.
Yeah, and I think this is the case even for like a cinematographer. He will remove the element of sound from his... when he's shooting, I mean, I feel like...
So
he's focused on the frame at that moment, just what is visually happening. That is his focus. How is the lighting? How can I adjust the lighting to make the scene look better? If you're shooting just for fun in a forest or something, you will experiment with that also. Like, you will not really look at the sound of it as much as you will look at the close-up of the tiger's eyes or whatever. Again, it really helps whatever field you are in to shut out certain things to be able to focus on whatever one thing that you really want to do.
I think you have summed up our current life philosophy in that one line, whether you're talking about this. Anything that you want to speak about, anything that you would like to talk about which we haven't asked about, anything at all?
The idea of branching out your skill set
Okay.
so that you are not left alone.
Okay, got it.
In just we did talk about how important it is to be focused on one particular genre and like create an identity, but it is equally important, and it is a paradox, to be good at a lot of things as well. Like in today's day and age, it is better to be good at a lot of things than be pinpoint focus great at one thing.
Yeah.
I feel so.
At least from a practical point of view.
Yeah, from a practical point of view, because not everyone is going to be a Ritviz.
Yeah.
Your music is not going to reach 4.5 million people on YouTube. It's not, unless you are reinventing the wheel.
Sure. So you're saying this from a very practical perspective, from the sense that, and this is a question that, all creators who come on have answered in some way or the other. There's some things that you do for art's sake, and there's some things that you do from a commercial sake. In fact, like one of the last people we spoke to, we almost do a continuum. There's like pure art where just you're creating for yourself, being happy. You crack this solo, whatever, and you're just happy with that. Nobody else will see it. And then on the other side, you're sacrificing everything. Again, no judgment on that, but you're sacrificing all semblance of art purely in the pursuit of money, fame, etc. And music just happens to be the way, the instrument that you will, if I may, to get there. Tomorrow it might be painting, day after tomorrow it might be something else totally. So I suppose, and I think what we had said over there was, it's really about floating around in this continuum,
the sliding scale of this continuum.
Yeah, that's a nice visual way to look at this. So if you are diving into the world of sound, you should be good at music, understanding music, and within the music also you should be able to understand how to score a film and how to write songs, because they are two very different things. And just as different as it is to write a song and score a film, it is to score an ad or write a jingle for an ad. Again, background score for an ad is different, and writing a jingle for an ad is very different. Then you look at sound and be like, okay, if I'm into music, what else can I do? How can I expand this further? So then you get into sound design. You try to understand how can I make the sound soundscape for this film, for this ad. So you learn Foley. That Foley is essentially recording sounds in a studio so that you can get better quality sound in your film. So like the sound of, say, me sitting on the sofa
would be recreated by something else totally.
Or like the sound of birds flapping, or anything of that sort, fan. These are all things that you probably put in a film in post-production, because a lot of times film go into dubs, right? So if a film is dubbed, which means your audio is completely blank, you have to create an environment, right? You can't just be in a vacuum. So you create the room tone, like what kind of a room are you sitting in? Is it a quiet room? Are they sitting in a village, or are they sitting in a city? You will have a different soundscape coming from outside the window if you're in a village, and if you're sitting in a city, is it day or is it night? All of these things then you learn. And then once you get into sound design, Foley, ambience, understanding this, then you can also get into mixing. So mixing is putting all of these together and leveling them in a way that the audience listens to what needs to be listened to at that point in time, right? So I don't want to make my Foley sound, I don't want to have a very loud sound when I sit on the sofa, because the attention is, say, of the dialogue that is being spoken at that point. So you focus on the dialogue as as your main element in that scene. But if you're sitting on a sofa, or you're sitting on a wooden chair, or you're sitting on an office chair that is very creaky, squeaky, so you level it in such a way that you get an idea ki sunai de raha hai, but it's not like distracting me from what he's saying. Similarly, music, when you're mixing a song, or if you're mixing a film, all of it is different. In a song, at this point in the song, what is the most important element? Is it my kick drum, or my bass guitar, or is it the vocals, or is it the guitar solo? You level it accordingly, and you automate it. Basically, you level. In this section, the guitar is important, so I'm going to raise the levels of the guitar. But the moment the next section comes in, the guitars go in the background, and like the vocals stand out. or like another soloist is coming in, so then that soloist is the loudest.
Yeah.
But like overall how to balance the music, and then overall how to balance an entire film. So you have elements, you have stems of the music also of the entire film, but you have also got the sound design of the film, or you have the Foley, you have the ambience, you have the sound effects. Sound effects are basically unreal sounds. So the whoosh of a sword, suppose, those aren't real sounds. We put it just to give the
effect.
Yeah, to make it give that effect that it's a really fast-paced sword, or it's cutting through the air, or like if a samurai is removing the sword from his sheath, that shing, that sound. Those are not actually sounds that come out of.
Yeah.
It's much more dull, But you create these kind of sounds to give the
vibe,
more fun,
yeah.
more dynamic,
More heightened effect of
more heightened effect. Yeah. So it's important because at some point in life, you may not get work for music, but because you are also good at sound design, you may get a project that only does sound design.
Yeah.
And this way, at least, you will never be at a stage where you have no work. At least at some place, at some point in time, if the moment you have created that network of people who know that you can do anything in post when it comes to audio,
Yeah.
they will come to you.
Yeah.
Why won't they come to you? If they know that this one person can do everything,
Yeah.
why will they not, why will they go to anyone else?
Yeah.
So, and when you have down days, when you have days where you don't have work, then you hone your skills, right? So you practice your music, you go back to practicing your scales on the piano or the scales on your flute or whatever.
Yeah.
And you learn your production software, you get into the details of synthesis and try to learn how to create your own sounds using a synthesizer. Like this, you keep honing your art so that whenever the time comes, you are ready.
This is like great freelancer advice overall.
And also it reminds me of that quote that if you have 4 hours to cut a tree, you should spend 3 hours sharpening the axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the cutting part is only 1 hour, but you have to sharpen the axe for 3 hours to do that effectively in that 1 hour.
Yeah.
Last question from my side. We have spoken so much about sound music and how it heightens, your content watching experience in some ways. 2 or 3 movies or series that you would recommend almost purely on the base of music. I'm not saying that the storyline is shit.
Or sound design, not just
or
music.
sound design. Yeah. Which you would really recommend. Yeah, that's a great example of the profession that we claim.
So I'm going to just name a few films that I watched recently because they are what come to my mind. For sound design, any of the John Wick films,
Okay.
just focus on the sound
Yeah,
design.
I mean, not that there's much else to focus on in any case in a John Wick film.
I mean, you focus on the blood and everything else.
Yeah,
I'm saying, you don't focus on the blood this time. You
But
focus
jokes apart.
the sound of the punch, like when it lands on someone's cheek or when it lands on someone's stomach, or like the sound of the bikes and the skidding of a bike. I mean, the sound design of John Wick is unreal. It is too good.
That's one.
In terms of music, I mentioned this before. I would really recommend Captain Fantastic.
Okay.
It has a great score and very distinct score. Something unlike any other film I've watched, because they got a band like Sigur Rós to do it, who have never scored a film before.
Sure, yeah.
And they just applied their same ideas of how they would write a song, and they've applied it as a background score. It just works so beautifully. Let me think.
No, that's 2 is good enough, actually.
Yeah. No, I have some in mind.
We'll compile them and, I don't know, put them in a link in the notes or something like that. But anything else?
No, I mean, just...
Super. Amir, this has been great, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to chat with you about some aspect of this forever, and I found that we're starting a show like this and inviting your friends over to talk about what they do is a great excuse to hang out and just get into the whole process a little bit more. So yeah, thank you so much for coming.
This was fun. This was really fun. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think you've covered a fair journey over here, starting from your AIB days all the way to I don't know, John Wick seems like a weird way to end, but we'll take that. So yeah, thanks again, man. Thanks so much, and good luck with everything that you're doing. And,
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah. And best of luck to you guys, man.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, very much needed.